What's up, guys? Wade Willis here to do my review and breakdown of Star Wars The High Republic, Light of the Jedi, which was the first novel in the High Republic series. This vast series it's going through adult novels, young adult novels. They have the comics going, and then they're even doing like a manga thing coming up that I'm actually super excited for. And I did actually read Rising Storm right after I finished Light of the Jedi, so obviously I did not hate the book. I was a bit worried that this book being the first one in a major kind of new time in Star Wars, I had a feeling that they were going to try to introduce too many things, too many characters, kind of jump around a lot. Um, and honestly, like this, they did actually do that, and I thought that was like the biggest fault in the book. It was extremely hard to follow, and I feel like some of the things that I like, some of the characters maybe they were following around and how much they were jumping around, I don't think was completely necessary. That's just my opinion. I feel like you could have maybe broken it up into if you're so focused on getting so many characters and their side of this great disaster and that you want everyone to see that, maybe make it into two different books. But in one book where it's just jumping around and it's going through, like, at the same point in time, like, 7 different groups of people, it was just a bit too much for me. Now, I did really enjoy the book overall. Once we got to the to the good parts, about a third or halfway through. Oh, and yeah, guys, if you haven't already, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. I'm covering a lot more in this High Republic era. I'm going to be doing a review on the most recent Thrawn book, and I will be going super in depth on the new anime Star Wars thing that's about to start in September. So, yeah, definitely check that out. Yeah, I feel like the very beginning of the book, not even very beginning, first like third, was really tough for me to get through just because of all the jumping around. I'm like, I get it, there's a catastrophe going on. Can we like focus on one person and see what's going on? Um, and I felt like it was kind of biting off more than it could chew. And there's other people who have stories in Star Wars, and most of the really good Star Wars books like follow a more than one person at a time. But like Timothy Zahn does it really well, where like really he covers maybe 2 or 3 people, like I would say 5 at max. But it's like it's not confusing. It was hard for me to even remember who was who, and I'm like, wait, is this person a Jedi? Is this person like who is this? So that was kind of a bit frustrating for me. But once I feel like the first third of the book was over, Charles Soule really like got into his stride, and I really enjoyed the book after that. I thought after that first third, I thought, okay, this is going to be like the worst Star Wars book I've ever read. I've read like over 35 Star Wars books. I honestly, it's probably closer to 40. I would have to sit down and count. But the first third, I had it probably as like my last place Star Wars book. And then it jumped up. I mean, it's not in the upper half, but it increased significantly from where it was at, and I really enjoyed the end. The things that were introduced, I really liked the Nile characters. Like right as soon as they were introduced, I was like, okay, these are cool villains. They're not Sith, which is kind of cool that we have kind of a different grouping of people. Like it doesn't seem like to this point they're really like Force sensitive. Maybe there are some that are, but it seems like they aren't. I feel like the villains were written so well in this overarching series. I'm really interested in them, and each like villain or each of the Nile that's introduced, like I want to know more about them. I cannot say the same about the Jedi. From the start, I liked really almost none of them. And then by the end of the story, I really did become really interested in quite a few of them. The main seems like the main Jedi that this whole overarching thing is kind of following, and again, it's following a bunch of different people, but like kind of the main heroine is Avar Cress. And the way they started off her in this book, I felt like kind of did a disservice to her. Uh, they made her seem more like a superhero than like a Jedi. Who she is a master, she's super powerful, but just it almost seemed like Wonder Woman or Superwoman kind of in the beginning of the book. The way she was going about things seemed like very arrogant, and she kind of not she seems really intelligent, but like there was sort of like an airiness and like a weirdness to her that I couldn't quite put my finger on, that I just did not like very much. But her force abilities at times seemed a bit like OP, but then you kind of realize like there are things that she's not good at, and once they started getting into that, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And she does see the force as kind of like as like music, which I think is really interesting, and I was actually like pretty excited. And now I do want to learn more about her. Um, and I'm gonna read the comics because I have heard that she is plays a large role in a lot of the comics and stuff. But yeah, so far, uh, this one she was a big character. After this book, the other book I read, she was not really involved like at all. So, but yeah, she grew on me. Bell and his master Loden, love them. I love everyone that was involved with them in that part where they're kind of on that other planet that is has the Jedi outpost. All those characters really well. Obviously, Ember, the Charhound. Um, Star Wars does a great job of doing stuff with like animals, and like I am I am probably most attached to Ember of like any character in the maybe almost in all of Star Wars. I absolutely love Ember, and that is one of the strong suits of Star Wars, having like different animals that you become attached to, and droids and stuff. Like they've done a really they always do a really good job of that, and Ember was an absolute home run. And even in the other book I read, she's awesome as well. Yeah, Elzar Mann is the other Jedi. He's in this book. He is a Jedi Knight, but is like super powerful, and you get like really like kind of Anakin vibes from him a little bit. He is, I would say, more of an introvert than Anakin is, and he obviously isn't prophesized as the chosen one, so there isn't that like pressure on him. But he seems more like realistic than Anakin. But he is flawed, but super powerful. I really like him as a character, and super excited to learn more about him in the future. And then like the Eye, or like who's kind of like the head of the Nihil, Marchion Ro. I thought they did a really good job. Like I was kind of in the beginning of the story, I almost had kind of sympathy for him. But then the more you're learning about him and seeing his true nature, you're like, oh, this guy is a piece of crap. He's evil through and through, and he's just a really good villain. Like, is he super powerful or anything? No, but he does have pretty solid tactics. Some of them blow up in his face once in a while, but um, he is a pretty good tactician, and a lot of his ideas are, I mean, disturbing, but they're interesting. So I think he is a really good like main villain. But all of the Nihil that are introduced um, are really interesting, and it is an interesting organization where they kind of do eat their own. A bit like how in the Old Republic stuff, the Sith would constantly kill each other and stuff. Um, kind of have that dynamic going on where They're trying to get rid of the weak and always trying to surpass the other. So I do like that aspect. There's some similarities, but it's not the same. And they changed it enough that it's still fresh to me. Now I'm gonna kind of go into some spoiler stuff with a review on some of the stuff with the plot and things that I thought were interesting, and just a little summary. Now, this story obviously focuses on the great disaster and the aftermath of it. And for the Star Wars fans that had a lot of issues with like the maneuver and all that stuff, I feel like this whole series and the Nihil themselves, I feel like a lot of those people are going to have problems with it. But if you just accept that this is how it is, and like how the great disaster happened and why it worked the way it did, it's if something's moving through and is like broken apart and there's not shields around it and it's going the speed of light, how it is not breaking apart in space. Again, I know that there's not atmosphere, and a lot of the stuff didn't happen until it goes into atmosphere, but it just some of it doesn't. If you think about it, it makes sense, and then if you think about it more, it doesn't make sense. It's kind of one of those weird like things, and I just chose to, okay, accept this calamity happened. This stuff's going all over the place. Shit is hitting the fan hardcore. So you just got to accept that. And once you do, the story is like fun and entertaining. Especially once you get past the initial uh, part of the Great Disaster. And I feel like once they start to get to the point where they can predict where these emergencies are going to happen, things like that, then I feel like the story gets a lot more interesting because you start seeing Martian Rowe as kind of a puppet master, and you start seeing really how the Nile work because they know where everything's going to happen, going to kind of emerge, and really the Nihil's strength comes from their ability to go in and out of hyperspace in these like kind of like hidden lanes, almost like they have these extra toll roads that no one knows about, where they can get to places quicker. They can get to places like inside gravitational pulls that don't make sense at all. And again, you have to accept this to enjoy this book. If you start like trying to contemplate how this could happen, like I'm not a physicist, I'm not a mathematician. I just, you know what, I'm going to accept it, even though logically somehow it doesn't make sense to me. So they're able to do all these things, and this really gives them an advantage in battle to sneak in and out of places. Um, and Martian Rowe is the eye of the Nihil, and is the one who gives these paths and such to his Tempest runners. And there's 3 Tempest runners. In order to vote for things in the Nihil, they have votes. If there's a tie 2-2 vote, the whatever side has the eye, Martian Rowe's vote, that side wins. And you're kind of like confused or you're kind of like, how the heck are they able to do this? You find out Martian Rowe has this like lady who's like over 100 years old, I think, and she's in this thing keeping her alive, where he's forcing her to go and find all these paths. It appears that she is force sensitive, and it doesn't. To me, I'm like, I don't know if she became force sensitive because she went like crazy doing so much hyperspace travel, or she was just always that way and doing all that hyperspace travel just dialed her in even more. Which, the fact that this is how these things are found, I feel like makes more sense if you've read a lot of the new Thrawn books, because that is kind of the big thing with the Chiss, is that they have the Skywalkers who are really traveling through the chaos, using their third sight, which is using the Force, and able to find these paths that are super difficult. So this concept has been kind of touched on previously, so it's not that big of a jump to me personally. I feel like, okay, like I got it. This old lady is just able to do all this, and she's just like next level. And Marchion's like torturing her, doing all this stuff, making her do it his bidding. His father was the Eye of the Nile before, and she did all these paths for him as well. So that's how they're doing all this. They have all this intel and stuff, and no one else in the Nihil knows that this is how Marchion is getting this information. So if they did, someone would kill him and take her. So, and to be honest, I don't know if she would live once she's taken out of that ship, but I digress. Now, it's interesting, like the overall destruction from just this one ship ripping apart in hyperspace is almost to the level, not quite to the level, but like how much damage like Star Killer Base did, because Star Killer Base really destroyed a whole like solar system or whatever. They were close to actually being able to do that too, because there was a thing of Tabana gas that was heading towards a sun or a star, whatever, sun, and if it would have hit that star, it would have exploded and like engulfed the whole system. So that would have been the amount of money spent and like resources spent to do this compared to like Starkiller Base, which is essentially built on a whole planet of kyber crystals, and it was just wild how they were able to do that. This is really genius that they were able to almost accomplish the same thing with really a fraction of the resources. They used kind of an old lady who could see things that most people can't, which I guess that's a really difficult resource to find. But really, just one ship breaking apart almost completed the same thing. I don't know. I think that's interesting to think about. Now, the whole Tabana gas thing, and this was kind of my issue, I guess, with Avar Chris a little bit, and again, not a ton, but she basically does this mind meld thing with basically every single Jedi in the galaxy somehow, um, and they're able to move this Tabana gas thing from hitting this star. Now, the idea that they could do that, I felt like that was a little far fetched, but the idea of like a Jedi mind meld has been touched on previously in Star Wars. It was, I believe that it was very common in the old expanded universe, especially when stuff was going on with. I think it was introduced in the original Thrawn trilogy. I believe. I'm pretty sure it was. And then I know later on in the books, it was utilized a lot more. And obviously, those things are not canon now. But so this is not a concept that is not common. But the fact that she was able to do it with like, it seemed like every Jedi. It almost seemed like every Jedi in the galaxy was like joined in. Kind of weird to me. I wasn't like the biggest fan of it, but whatever. I accepted it. It's fine. That was kind of funky to me. I don't know how other people felt about it. I'm sure there's other people who agree with me on that part. That was a bit extra for me, but whatever. It's fine. You wanted to show like what her skill is in linking people and all that stuff. Kind of a cool ability. Very useful. Um, but yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Now I mentioned that the Jedi and the Republic are able to kind of calculate out where some of these, where more of these ship parts are going to come out of hyperspace, and the Nihil are also able to do this. So there's kind of this cat and mouse thing where they're trying to figure out where the flight deck records for that plane for that ship that broke apart. the Jedi want to get it. The Nihil seem like they want to get it to be able to kind of hide that they were the ones behind everything. And there's kind of this cat and mouse thing and they're trying to find this black box essentially. And you also have kind of the Nihil are so wild and not the most organized. And one of the Tempest Runners ends up, he knows where there's going to be um, three more parts of a ship that are going to go and destroy kind of this planet and its moon and stuff. And he tries to extort this planet by saying like, "Hey, I know where these things are going to come at what time." It happens, or he shoots one of them, then like stops another one, and is like, "Hey, you're going to have to give me like whatever 1,000,000 credits or something, and I'll stop this next one." Well, the Nihil do drugs all the time and stuff, and it ends up his like gunner or whatever miscalculates on the last one after they got the money, and it totally obliterates the moon of this planet. And obviously the people are not pumped about that. And that comes back to bite this Tempest Runner in the butt for a few reasons. One, it pisses off Marchion because this was not good for the Nihil doing this. And two, that group or that planet is like, they're beasts, and apparently they're super good warriors, like almost kind of like Mandalorian, but not Mandalorian. And they're out for blood of this Tempest Runner. And kind of like the end of the story, you have this Tempest Runner who Marchion sent into a trap. And this is on brand for the Nihil, it seems. And Marchion's able to control their ships, and he's like almost making them do like kamikaze suicide missions, like just slamming into ships of the Republic and all this stuff. The Tempest Runner ends up getting killed by the leader of that planet that he screwed over. It's utter chaos. And at the same time, Marchion kind of plans this thing on this Jedi outpost, and his whole plan is really he wants to get a Jedi hostage, and he ends up getting a hostage. I'm not going to go too much into the whole plot of that, but he ends up getting Bell's master, Loden, and yeah, you're like, because you really like Loden Bell by this point, and you're kind of like of all people, like there's a lot of other Jedi would have not been disappointed if he snagged, but snagging Loden really sucks, and you feel for Bell in that situation. And then finally in the story, we have Elzar has this crazy vision where there's like chaos. He's like kind of starts to lose his mind from this vision and is super frightened, and we all know where fear leads. So yeah, the story ended. I honestly thought it took forever for it to start going, but once it got going, it was great. I enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, I'm really excited for the rest of this series. I am going to be doing the comics. I will have a review of the Rising Storm book out in the next few days. I finished that recently. And I will have a review out of the second, in the most recent Thrawn book, out soon as well. But overall, it was fine. It's the first book in the series. Kind of knew it would be all over the place. I'm hoping they kind of like tighten it up a little bit, and in the stories in the future, don't go in so many different places. I don't need to have 18 characters analyzed in a 300-page book. It's just too much. I feel like Vector Prime had kind of a similar issue. Just to start a long overarching series, it's going to be a lot of books and stuff. It's really hard to do it well, and that's usually one of the worst books. And it's not always the fault of the person who wrote the book, especially when you're when it's a group effort and what this overarching story is going to be, and you have like there's just too many people in the kitchen and you're trying to set everything up for everyone else in this group. So I understand. I thought it was okay. It's towards the bottom of my ranking of Star Wars books that I've read, but I enjoyed it, especially the last half. 2/3 to half, I thought was very good, and like as soon as I finished, I wanted to start reading another story in the High Republic. So I have high hopes for the High Republic. I'd love to hear what you guys thought about the book. Let me know in the comments below.